black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know. I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain. Turned and stared at me, and this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun, grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage, all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Zio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you tonight. Got several witnesses coming up. Nick, who was driving in Montana, and him and his wife had seen one of these creatures actually off of the road, and he turned around and went back. And a very fascinating account. Actually, he sent me a little graph of how big this creature was. If you go to sasquatchchronicles.com, you can check it out. But Nick has a very fascinating account. I'll also be speaking to Derrill, and Derrill was on episode 293, I believe, and he'll be giving us an update. I posted this picture to the SasquatchChronicles.com on the blog, and if you want to see it, it's under this episode. I'll repost it, but it's these red eyes. And Derrill, his stepdaughter, had taken the picture, and she said that this thing was looking at her in the window, and he sent me a picture of how high up the window is, and it's a fascinating picture. And so he'll be coming on here shortly to talk about that. And then I'll also be speaking to Clint, who's a 6th grade teacher, and he taught a class on Bigfoot. I thought this was the coolest thing ever. That's why I welcomed him to the show. And he'll talk about teaching the last 3 days of school, teaching Bigfoot. Can you imagine that if you were in school and the last 3 days your teacher wants to teach you about Bigfoot? I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So he'll be coming up. And then my final guest will be Brenda Harris. Most of you know Brenda. If you go to YouTube, type in New Mexico Shadow Seekers, Brenda's channel comes up. She is one of the best out there. She'll actually go out, talk to people. She tries to help people all the time. And when I very first started the show, I couldn't get anyone to come on the show, but Brenda would come on. And the cool thing about Brenda is Brenda will give you real information on what to do. You know, she lives there on the reservation, and they run into these creatures frequently. And so she'll be sharing some of those, what to do, what not to do, and then encounters around the reservation. Always love talking to Brenda and can't wait to bring her on. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Nick to the show. Nick, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks, Wes. I'm excited to be here to share my encounter that I had. I wouldn't say nervous, because nervous, I want to get it over with, but I'm excited to start and share with you and the listeners of what I've had. I love the show. I found it like 2 weeks ago, and I have to say I've been binge listening and listening to like 3 to 5 episodes a day.
Oh, wow.
So
well, thank you, man.
It's been kind of an addiction to me and my family. So yeah, I just absolutely love it. And it's really an honor to be here. Yeah,
no. The honor's mine having you on. And thank you for all the nice words, and thanks for listening. This encounter really, it's an encounter I think most people want. They want this type of encounter. But if you would, for the audience, this happened in Montana, correct, Nick?
Yeah, Montana, while I was coming home from vacation. It was 2013, and I was with my family up in the Bigfoot Kalispell area for the 4th of July. And it was July 7th. We were leaving to head back home to Wyoming. And I had my wife and my two boys with me. They were 3 and 1 at the time. And so we were driving back home, and it was a roadside sighting. Before I tell about the sighting, I just wanted to kind of preface it with my experience as a hunter for 20 plus years and being able to spot and see animals. I'm always scanning the road and looking around for animals that could either be a hazard and come on the road, or just be able to spot animals and see them to enjoy looking at them. But I've always been really good at seeing deer from 200, 300, 400 yards away. I can spot a moose, and I've seen bear on the side of the road, and it takes just like a fraction of a second for me to identify what it is. On our ride up there, we saw a moose that was way off at a different angle, and I was able to know what it was right away. I've seen bear in the shadows before and been able to see the bear and say, oh, there's a black bear. So the encounter, we were driving past Swan Lake, which is south of the Big Fork and Flathead area, and it was around mile marker 60s or 70s that I'm scanning the road looking for the animals like I always am, just to make sure nothing comes on the road. My boys were asleep in the back. My wife was riding shotgun with me, and we come up to this dirt road that kind of comes off to the right-hand side. It's kind of at about a 40 to 60 degree angle going to the right. And I look and I see something standing off on the side of the road, that dirt road. Immediately, my brain tried to associate and tell me what it was. And my brain told me there's a man standing there, because whatever I saw was standing on 2 feet with its arms at its side, and it was looking to the left. But my brain couldn't comprehend really what it was, because after about a half a second of me looking, I said, that's not a man standing there. What is that? And I thought it was a fisherman at first, because the size and shape of this person was like if a man was wearing one of those rubber Alaskan fishing rain outfits. If you kind of know what I'm talking about, where the rain hood of the fishing hat goes straight from the top of the head to the shoulders, is what I was looking at. But after a half a second of me looking at this thing, I knew it wasn't a man, because I saw the side of the face, and it was a flat face. It was July 7th. It's like 90, 95 degrees outside, bright, sunny day. And it didn't make sense that any man would be standing there. So I keep looking at this thing probably for a full second and a half to 2.5 seconds. Its arms are laying by at its side, straight down, standing on 2 legs, and the face was looking off to the left, but then it was standing on the other side of a chain link fence. The chain link fence came up midway to the back, below its armpits, and it was just standing there. I did not know what it was. It startled me so much that I didn't know really what to think about it, because it wasn't a human, and it was an animal standing there. So usually I tell my wife, I'm like, oh, look, there's a deer, there's a bear, there's a moose. But I was so shocked, I was speechless for about 15 seconds going down the road. And finally I look over to my wife and said, did you see that? And she jerks over looking at me and says, you saw it too? And so that just made me feel like I wasn't insane, that she saw the same thing too. I had no answer for. So I started questioning her, what did you see? And she starts describing the exact same thing that I saw. This huge animal standing on 2 legs, arms at the side, posture like a man, and looking to the left. She was able to see fur or hair on this creature. Me driving, I wasn't able to notice the fur or hair, but I did notice between the shoulder blades there was a gray spot. The coloring was black on this animal, but between the shoulders it was gray. And I thought that was really odd. I've never seen a bear or a moose or anything that was dark black color with gray just between the shoulders like that. I'm sure that there is, but the posture and the flat face really is what stood out to me. So we started talking about exactly what we saw. We saw the same thing, standing on the side of the road, on the other side of the fence. The fence came up midway to the back, and my boys were asleep. And I never really pull over to look at animals when I'm with my family. It was a 10-hour drive or so, and we had just got on the road, so I wasn't going to stop and take time to do anything. But this was the first time in my 12 years of being married that I actually made the decision to turn around and go back and see it. My wife usually just wants to get on the road, get home, but we turned around to just get more evidence, more questions answered, because it was so odd, so different, and spooky really is the best answer for it. My boys were asleep, so we turned around, we came back, found the road, and one thing that when we both figured that fence was probably about a 4-foot fence for the height to come up that high on the back. And even if our perception was correct, it was still a huge animal. It was a very large animal. So I get out of the car. I have a concealed carry permit. I draw my pistol and I walk up, and I figured nothing would be there, but I was still spooked, and I've never done this before. So I get out, walked up to the fence, and the number one thing that it scared the hell out of me right away was the size of the fence. It was not a 4-foot fence. The fence was about 6.5, almost 7 feet tall. I stood flat-footed next to the fence, and I reached my hand as high up in the air as I could without stretching, and I was able to bend my wrist and put my hand on top of the fence. And I've measured that since then. It's about 80, 81 inches or so. So just the fence, the top of the fence, comes up to like 6'8", 6'9". And so on the animal, that still gives another 2 to 3 feet above the fence, because that fence came below the armpits in the middle of the back for this creature. And when I had first seen it, the width of the shoulders really stood out. It was really wide at the shoulders, and by referencing it to the size of the fence, those shoulders were at least 4 foot, maybe 5 foot in diameter was this creature's shoulders. And I'm just going to call it a Sasquatch, because that is the only thing that fits what I saw. And so I looked around, I looked for footprints. The ground was so dry that there's nothing to find. But then I started checking the angles of where the road comes and where I could see the fence from the highway. And there's only one spot that you can see the fence at. And there was a little hill, but the hill was then hidden by trees and brush, and you can't see it from the fence. The only place that this Sasquatch could have been standing was level with the bottom of the fence and flat right there. So I was trying to answer these questions in my head. How could something be that tall and that massive? Was it standing on a log? Was it standing on a hill? It was completely flat there. I have no explanation other than there was this massive Bigfoot that was standing there, and we caught it trying to cross the road, and it froze and looked over its shoulder to see us. And my wife saw the same thing. If she wouldn't have seen it, I wouldn't have turned around. I wouldn't have known that the fence was that high, that this animal was that big. And it just, it worries me, or just kind of like, it's shocking to me to have actually seen something like this.
Yeah, and that's the thing, they are bigger than most people realize, when you come face to face with them. I'm glad you went back. That would have been my impression too. I would have walked right up to the fence and been like, oh my God, because you saw it from the back, from about the back up. And that's why you thought it was a 4-foot fence?
Yeah, the chain link fence, I could see through it. So I could see it standing there, but with the shadows and everything, I only really noticed the details from middle to back where the fence was and up. I didn't get a chance to see if it had fingers or claws or anything like that. But yeah, I saw it from the back, and it was about 30 to 40 yards away is my best guess from being so long ago and having it scare me so bad to try to remember that. But from that distance, I've killed deer with my bow from that distance. It's not that far of a distance to be able to tell detail, even for 2 to 3 seconds. With my experience being an outdoorsman, that back view with his face being profile gives me so much information that I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, and I'm surprised you went back. Well, not really, actually. I think most people would probably turn the car around and go back. What does your wife think of all of this?
Well, she was pretty scared. She stayed in the truck, and I think she locked me out. But she was shocked that she saw the same thing. I don't think she would have said anything if I would have said it first, because she looked at me and she's like, "You saw it too?" It made an impression on her to the point that she was as speechless as I was for 10 to 15 seconds after seeing that, because she's not that outdoorsy. She likes shopping and makeup and stuff like that. But we live in Wyoming. Wildlife and nature is just part of what we see all the time. And so she does enjoy seeing animals. So for her to be as speechless as me says volumes. So she definitely believes that it was a Sasquatch. And with her already not being outdoors, she doesn't want to go camping or go hunting with me anymore.
Yeah, I don't blame her. I don't get a ton of reports from Wyoming, but I don't blame her. You know, it's a lot of times when people see that face, especially from a profile view, that's what a lot of witnesses will say. They'll say it had a flat face. It was completely flat. And it's little details like that, you know, even though it was only a couple seconds I'm sure time was in slow motion as you're passing this thing. But little details like that, you know, different things that other witnesses say, very fascinating encounter.
Yeah, it's something that, like one of the reasons why I just love your show is I've tried to share this with people. And if people haven't had an encounter or aren't really, really interested in it, they just kind of shrug it off. They're like, yeah, sure, whatever. But being able to share it on your show with people that have had experiences and encounters, it's kind of like scratching the itch that I've been trying to do for so long. And it's made such a huge impression that it's going to last with me forever. And the idea of me going out in the woods and knowing that there's a creature this big, it's shocking and scary to me, because standing there at the fence, if I would have had my hand straight up in the air, I wouldn't even be able to touch his chin. I might have been able to jump up in the air and touch his chin. And that, you can't really grasp the size of it until you can reference it with something. And when I first saw it, my brain started trying to reference it with anything I knew in the past. Once I got up to that spot, it was so much bigger than I could have imagined. I grew up watching Harry and the Hendersons. I love that show. And I think the actor that played Harry, wasn't he like 6'8", 6'9", or so? And sure. Like the proportion, I think that he was. He also played the Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie The Predator. But I think it was like 6'8", 6'9", and the proportions, that's what I kind of have always associated with Bigfoot. But the shoulders were so much wider, and he was so much taller. It was 2 feet taller than the Bigfoot on Harry and the Hendersons. And so it's still hard to kind of realize that height and the width and the size of the arms. I remember the arms were just huge, just like a big muscle-bound guy at the gym that's all swole and taking steroids, that his arms stick out to the side. And this thing would have made anyone look puny.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's the biggest thing that scares people beyond, that this thing shouldn't exist. I think probably the number 2 thing that would scare people the most is just the physical size of it. It's like you and I were talking the other day. A lot of times in your home, the ceiling is 8 feet up. I'm 6 foot, so that's 2 feet above my head. And think about that for a moment. I mean, that's if you're standing in your room, normal homes, your average homes, not normal homes, average homes. The ceiling's up about 8 feet. So think about that. And then sometimes people are running into 9 foot and 10 foot. It's amazing that these things can hide as well as they do.
Yeah, I'm surprised that anything is out there in the woods and isn't seen more often with the size of it. Because at work, we own a photography studio and our ceilings are 12 feet tall. And so that thing came up 2 feet from the studio, and those ceilings are massive. If you have a reference like that, like your 8 foot house home or something like that, to think of something that big that is also that wide, that's what shocked me, was the width of this thing. And when I went up to the fence, but that wide, that tall, the muscles on that thing that is out in the woods that can be smart and intellectual and is intelligent. It's just, I think if it was just an animal, then would be one thing, but for them to not be seen as much and be able to hide and be able to do some of the things that your guests have showed or shared on the show is really scary.
It really is. And you're right about the shoulders. They definitely will get you. If you ever see one with most descriptions, they have the wide shoulders. But, even in my own encounter, I remember still to this day, the shoulders everything else impresses you, but you tend to focus in on one thing. And I remember just focusing in on those shoulders and just being in awe on how wide that thing is. So I get it completely, man, especially when you're passing this thing. You're right. You have kind of in your mind, I think, before you have an encounter of what Sasquatch will look like, like Harry and the Hendersons or the Patterson-Gimlin, but it's so much more when you see them.
Yeah. There was I can't remember what it is. I was just looking yesterday, but there's a different, another Bigfoot show. I think that you have had him on your show but anyways, his picture for his radio show or whatever is a hunter. It's in black and white, and he's standing next to a Sasquatch, and he only comes up right above like the belly button or something. And that was the size and the proportion of it. If you can imagine coming face to face, I'm 5'9", but face to face, just to above something's belly button, that's just so crazy. It doesn't compute in my mind until I saw this thing.
I completely get it. And I'm glad you had the experience, to especially something like that when you're in a car and you're driving by it. Like I said, I think that's the encounter most people want, or, crossing in front of you or something like that. But, being safe in a car. But I really appreciate you coming on, Nick, and sharing the encounter very much.
Yeah, absolutely. It made an impression on me, and it's something I'll never forget. And part of me wishes that I would have seen movement, and you're just kind of frozen there, but like I wish sometimes I would have seen it do something a little more if I would have just slammed on my brakes and given my kids seatbelt burn probably. Yeah. But just to see something, it do something. But we were going so fast, it still, I got a lot of information, and it's made a huge impact on the way that I see not just the outdoors and wildlife, but just the world and what society tells you is right or wrong. It's like, until you've seen something, you can't tell me jack about what's actually true or not. So it's really changed the way I see a lot of things. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you again. Absolutely, Wes. I really appreciate this outlet to be able to share with everyone, and I'll continue listening on and be a huge supporter of you guys. So I really appreciate it, Wes. Thanks, Nick. Well, next up on the show, I want to welcome Clint, who is the coolest sixth grade teacher out there in Indiana. And Clint, if you would kind of tell us about what you did in your class. I wish I could go back to sixth grade and join your class, but if you would, for the audience, kind of tell us what you did in your class.
Okay, sure, Wes. Thanks for having me on. So basically, the last 3 days of school is usually just a lot of downtime, and to keep the kids interested this year, the principal had told us that he wanted us just to take 3 days, teach about something that we would enjoy teaching. And so I decided to do a class on Bigfoot. What happened was I got the kids into the class. I started the class by, asking who believes in Bigfoot, who doesn't, and who thinks, might be, might not be. And basically I had 24 kids in my morning class and 24 kids in my afternoon class, and it was pretty much divided into thirds. There was about 8 kids that believed, 8 that didn't, and 8 that were really kind of just in the middle, didn't know what to think. From there, we just, we kind of talked about the Native American legends, showed a couple of videos that I found on legends and that kind of and tales and that kind of thing, and then I showed a video that was pretty cool. It was I don't remember the exact name of it, but it had like what each tribe, named Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and so that was kind of cool. And we talked about how the Native Americans, some of them believed that the Sasquatch was cannibals and would steal their children and that kind of thing. And then basically we just kind of talked about how the people in the American West, were seeing Bigfoot. I read the, I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head, but the one that Theodore Roosevelt talked about with the 2 mountain men.
Oh yeah.
Which is a really good one where they went up into that canyon and they got separated, and the Bigfoot killed the one guy and then the other one just kind of left. From there we went on into really just like into the 1958. I think, what was the guy, Jim Crew, the bulldozer operator in California?
Jerry
Crew. And we talked about him, and we read a little bit about that. And then we focused real hard on the Patterson film the first day of class. I showed the Patterson film several times, had the kids talk about it. Then I showed a documentary that I think was on like National Geographic, where some video guy was like breaking it down to see, whether he thought it was a real or a hoax. And so, and that really brought up some great conversation. You know how 6th grade kids are.
Oh, yeah.
They can think of some good stuff. And so, we spent a lot of time on the Patterson film on the first day, and it was really good. And that was really about it for the first day. One of my favorite was when I asked them about, whether they believed or not. And there was one kid that had raised his hand that didn't believe, and I go, why don't you believe Bigfoot? And he goes, are you serious? A 7 to 9 foot bipedal ape running around America, please. And so I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But
kid's got a point.
And do what?
I said the kid's got a point. Kid's got a good point.
Yeah, he does. And you always, like I said, when I talked to you earlier this week, the first question they always ask me is, do I believe? And I was just like, you know what, I'm kind of on the fence. There's got to be something out there, because there's got to be something to all the eyewitness accounts. I said all these people can't just be loony. So, and I think some of the kids, like, when they realized that that the Native Americans had even talked about Bigfoot and stuff, I think they sort of started to think, wow, there must really be something to this. So that was pretty much the first day. The second day, we watched The Legend of Boggy Creek, which was pretty good, because I think it was really like the first time that I had seen it, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I told the kids beforehand, I said, this isn't going to be a 2000, movie blockbuster where you're going to see all this high-tech, hi-fi, kind of stuff. And so, for a 70s show, they kind of enjoyed it, especially at the end. I had a couple of kids that were a little scared with the ending of it, where the Sasquatch grabbed the guy. And then we really kind of hit into Bigfoot in Indiana at that point. And so I played them, a couple of your podcasts from people that were here, our encounters in Indiana. And So, and then that really brought up some discussion too about how Bigfoot can, be in all these built up areas and be hidden. And so that was kind of cool too.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really, really cool. I'm not big on public speaking, but if I was in Indiana, I would have came down and been there, and I would have loved to have come seen the class.
That would have been cool. I tried to get there's a guy here in Indiana that's a local Bigfoot kind of guy, and I had emailed him and never heard back from him. So it would have been nice to have a speaker come in and talk to the kids. I think that would have been really cool too.
You'll have to let me know if you do it next year. I'll make plans to come. I'll bring casts for the kids, and I'll bring some cool stuff for them. Again, I'm not into public speaking, but I definitely would do it for them. It's like you and I were talking the other day. Some of the best questions I've ever had were from kids. But what were some of the questions the kids asked?
A lot of it just had to do with, if Bigfoot's out there, how come nobody's ever shot one? Especially when, they're out in the woods and there's hunters out there. I talked about, there really was. I mean, there's been some incidents where hunters have said that they've shot a Bigfoot, and I played the one from Coast to Coast, I think it was, with Art Bell and the guy named Bugs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Where him and his buddies said that they shot 2 of them. And we talked about that a little bit. And let's see, I'm trying to think of what a lot of it really had to do with, whether it was really out there or not. And then there was one boy the second day that raised his hand and goes, Mr. Neff, he goes, I think Bigfoot's real. I think he's out there. And I think the government's been covering it up the whole time. And I was like, that came straight out of left field because I had never brought any of that up. And so then I had to run with that. I told them about some of the stuff that I'd heard on your show about how the government was covering it up and how these 2 guys come out whenever there's, a sighting or whatever and tell people that they really didn't see what they saw or it was just a bear. And that really got some interest.
Wonder if that kid's looking for a job. I could use a part-time co-host. Like I said, some of the best questions come from kids. It's and I think it's really cool that you did that. I mean, I was thinking about my 6th grade, how my 6th grade was, and that would never happen. It seems like there's so much that's taught that's so monotonous, stuff you have to learn, but it's stuff you don't really want to learn. And to take a break for the last 3 days to learn about Sasquatch, I think is really cool. And if I was in 6th grade again, I would think, God, this, Clint's the coolest 6th grade teacher ever. This is the coolest, because I mean, most people don't do that. Most teachers don't do that, and it's not so much that you're teaching them whether Sasquatch exists or not, but you're teaching them. You're giving them comprehensive skills. You're giving them common sense skills. Listen to this. Tell me what you think. Listen to this. Tell me what you think. Look at this. Tell me what you think. And that's something I always try and push to people who listen to the show. Don't take my word for it, and don't take the eyewitness testimony for it. Go look for yourself. Go research this yourself. Go investigate this subject yourself, and use your own comprehensive skills, and you'll probably come up with the same conclusion. Whether you have an encounter or not, it's irrelevant. Look into this, and you'll probably start to come to the conclusion that this is real. It's like I was telling you before, if let's say 99% of everyone's lying and 99% of everyone's looking for attention, if one person's telling the truth, then there's something to it. Right.
And I totally agree with you. I mean, there's got to be something to it. I mean, with the Native American legends and all the stories of the wild men in the in the 1800s. I agree. I believe that there is something to the story. Something else I was going to talk about, like the first day we talked about the 4 types of Bigfoot, and I got that from your guys' podcast, and I showed them the Todd Standing videos, that really sparked up some big interest, and then I showed some of the videos that they people had done that showed that, that he was that it might be a hoax. His videos might be a hoax, where they like superimposed his face over the Sasquatch's face on the number 2 video. And so, basically that's why I kind of taught the class, was because it gave the students the opportunity to think and to express what they were thinking. The last day of class, we watched the I think it was a History Channel documentary on Bigfoot, and really one of the best ones I think is out there right now. And it talks about some of the encounters, and especially like the Chapman story in Alberta. And so we watched that, and then we talked a little bit at the end of class, and I asked them again, whether they don't believe, or if they're still on the fence. And there was a couple of kids that didn't believe, that were now kind of on the fence, but it shook out to really be about the same. It was about a third of the class that believed, a third that didn't, and a third that was kind of on the fence. Like I said, it was fun. I had a great time doing it, and I do plan on doing it again next year. So,
well, shoot me an email next time you do it. Give me a month or two advance. And if you want, I'll come out. If you want someone local, I could probably find someone local for you. But I think it's super cool. You never know the seed that you plant. When I was in kindergarten, we went and saw Chief Aluska, and or Laluska. It was a Chief Aluska, but it's Laluska. And we went and saw him, and he did this dance about the wild woman in the woods and how she would steal children and eat them. And it's funny because Woody and I were just talking about it. I was like, you would never see school systems doing that nowadays. You'd never get, there'd be too much politics, too much people getting upset. Oh, you're teaching these kids that there's monsters in the woods eating people. But it was probably, to this day, being an older guy now, it was hands down one of the most things I still think of in my life. It'd probably be in my top 10 list of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life, as sad as that sounds. But it really made an impression on me when I was a little kid. And I had no idea they were talking about Sasquatch. I thought it was just some crazy Native American woman that the natives were talking about that would go out and steal children and eat them. At kindergarten age, I couldn't comprehend what he was talking about. But looking back, now I get it. But, little stuff like that, it plants a seed. And I think that generation that you just gave that presentation to will probably be the generation that solves this mystery. I don't think it'll happen in my time. I think it'll be one of these kids that comes forward but I always think of Chief Laluska back on fond memories and wonder what he would think about today if he would have known. One of those little kindergartners that was there during his presentation now has a show called Sasquatch Chronicles that talks to I always wonder what he would have thought about that. Not that that's the reason why I started Sasquatch Chronicles, but how it made such an impression on me. And now looking back on it, now I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I understand what he was talking about. This wild woman of the woods that would steal children and eat them. I get it now. At the time, I didn't understand what he was talking about. But you never know the seed you plant with kids. And, who knows, with one of these kids, they might end up growing up and solving the mystery. You know what I mean? How great would that be?
That would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. I hope one of them does, actually. I hope someday they decide to, if it is a government cover-up, which, wouldn't surprise me, I hope that one day that they finally do tell us. So.
No, I do too. And, like I said, if next year you want me to come out there, man, I'll fly out there, spend a couple days out there. And if nothing else, hell, I'd love to sit and watch your presentation and sit and listen to what you have to say. And I could bring cool things for the kids. The kids always like track casts and, I used to have a huge collection, but I ended up giving it away to mainly kids that were interested. We'd be at an event and I'd be showing them the cast and they're really fascinated by it. And I'm like, oh, just take it. It's yours, And, it's, for me, it's, what am I going to do? Hang it on the wall. But I'd love to come out, man. I'd love to come out and be present.
That'd be great. I'd love to have you out there. We did have one girl in our, let me go back a little bit. So both the classes had 24 kids in them, and I had one girl in the morning class and one girl in the afternoon class. So that was kind of neat that, you know, there were a couple of girls that were interested in it. And actually the one in my afternoon class, she knew a lot about Bigfoot because apparently her dad had found some footprints, and, you know, they used to watch all the stuff. And she was funny because she would be talking about, what are the boogers going to do today? She kept calling them boogers, you know, just like they did in the South. And I thought that was kind of funny. So yeah, she was really on the ball. She goes, so are you going to have somebody from the BFRO out talk to us? And so
Smart
I was
kid.
like, you know, most people don't even know about the BRFO except for what they've seen on, you know, that Finding Bigfoot show. So she was on the ball, and she was good. She had a lot of good questions too, you know, like why do they call them boogers and that kind of thing. And some of the questions that I just couldn't answer. So
Yeah. Well, like I said,
Yeah.
you know, some of the most intelligent questions I've ever gotten were from kids. You would think it'd
Right.
be Bigfoot researchers, but it's not. It's actually kids.
Right.
And some of the best eyewitness testimony I've ever gotten were kids. I hate to say that. I'd love to say, oh, it was from a cop, or it was from a military guy, or it was from a senator.
Right.
But hands down, some of the best testimony I've ever gotten were from kids. And so, you know, that is someone from the BFR going to come out. That's cool, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So that was basically it. Yeah, I did a lot of research, you know, a couple months beforehand, and just kind of gave them what I knew. And I would love to have you out next year if that's something you'd be interested in, because I know the kids would like that.
Oh yeah, no, I'll come out for the kids.
Cool.
It's harder to get me, you know, even if you paid me money to come to a speaking event, that's probably not going to happen. But to come speak to a bunch of kids for free, I'm on it. I'll come
You're
out.
on it.
I'll definitely come out and talk to them, and I'll bring out some cool stuff for the kids too as well. But I appreciate you doing that, Clint, very much, and I appreciate you listening to the show. And you have to go down, and hands down, as the coolest 6th grade teacher ever.
Well, thank you, Les, and thank you for your show. Yeah, I've enjoyed it over the last several months, and I look forward to it, listening to them all the time. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on.
All right, thanks, Les.
Next up on the show, I want to welcome Derrill. And Derrill had this picture. He sent me this picture, and you can check it out if you go to SasquatchChronicles.com. You can see it underneath this episode of these 2 red eyes. And he'll be talking about that tonight. Derrill, you were on what, episode 293?
293, yes.
293. Yeah, and you had sent me this picture. I'd posted it to the blog, and I was really, I don't know what to think of that picture. But it's 2 red eyes. But if you would, for the audience, maybe tell us how this picture came about, and give us a little bit of information on it.
Sure. Yeah, that is a creepy picture, to say the least. Actually, my stepdaughter took that picture. She was staying at her aunt's house, and she woke up one morning about 2 o'clock. It was in the middle of the week, 2 o'clock. I guess she had to go to the bathroom. And her window was open, and she saw these 2 red eyes, for lack of a better term. And she stared it down, and it kept blinking at her. It stared her down for about 2 minutes. Now, she had her girlfriend with her, and she woke her up, and her girlfriend woke up and saw it. And as soon as she saw it, all of a sudden, whatever it was, got scared and left. The funny thing is that the bottom window ledge is about 6.5 feet off the ground. So that had to be at least 7 feet tall to even look in the window like it was. Now, I did ask her if she had a light on in the room, and she had a small light that was pointed out into the hallway. And I said, now, you sure it wasn't reflection? She said, no. When she saw the eye, she moved the light back and forth slightly. It was a little desk lamp. And it didn't change. So it wasn't a reflection. And I said, well, do you think it could have been an animal out there? So, well, first of all, there's no trees out there at that end. She said if it would have been something like a squirrel or something that would have come down off the roof, they would have heard it walk on the roof. because I have those a lot, and there was no noise. I did ask her, I said, did it make any noise when I was sitting there? She says, not a sound. It was absolutely quiet. Yeah, so that's pretty much the extent of it. Now, they live at the end of a cul-de-sac, and it's pitch black back there. And 20 feet from that window, there is a steep embankment that goes down to a creek that's all covered over with trees and things like that. So it's extremely secluded, and it's, there's really nothing around there.
Yeah. Now,
she does live on the edge of York City. Well, not of York. Well, East York. It's not really York City, East York. And she's in a development, but she's at the end of the development where there's nothing. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what the pictures look like when you were showing me, around that bedroom window. This happened in Pennsylvania, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, York, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was showing Woody. Not a lot of comments on the website. I was kind of surprised, but I was showing Woody, and I said, "Do you think?" He's like, "Do you think this is an owl?" And because Woody's the most, as you and I were talking the other day, Woody's the most skeptical person you ever met in your life, and he'll be really quick to call BS on just about anything. Even almost to the point where he doesn't even stop to think about it. I'll show him different things, and I'll be like, "You sure you want to give it maybe like 10 seconds to think first before you?" He's like, "No." But I showed him that picture, and I said, "Do you think this is an owl?" And he goes, "Eyes are too far apart." Then I showed him the window, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know what that is. It looks like something was standing there because that window is pretty high up." When you talked to your stepdaughter, did she hear it walk off?
No, she said she didn't really hear anything, which was surprising. But then again, she was excited. Let's put it that way. And she kept trying to hit her girlfriend, say, "Wake up, wake up, wake up!" And so yeah, she really didn't hear anything. And I asked her, I said, "Now, when it left, did it turn? Did it just drop down? Did it fly away? What did it do?" And she says she wasn't really sure, but she said it was there 1 minute, and then she looked down at her girlfriend and looked up, and it was gone. Yeah,
that's odd. She didn't hear it run off, or she didn't hear it walk off. And the other thing too, you're right. That window, it looks high up. I mean, I didn't put a measuring stick to it, but it looks pretty high up. But where the eyes are at, look even higher up. It looks like its eyes are almost at the top of that window. That was the impression I got from looking at it.
Well, let's see. The window is open, and what you see is the bottom part of the bottom pane all the way open. So you're looking about halfway up the window.
I got you. That's still pretty high up.
Yeah, I'm 6'4", and my head, if I go on my tiptoes, just touches the bottom of the window.
And is it your wife's sister that owns the
Yes.
property? Have you talked to her? Has she seen anything or heard anything around that property?
I've talked to her, and she really didn't say much. And then I explained to her what I saw and everything else. And her only thing was, she says, it's a good thing she has a house alarm, and she has it alarmed at night while she sleeps.
Yeah. Well.
But yeah, and also my
touché.
stepdaughter, after I explained to her what we thought it was, she doesn't sleep the window open anymore either.
Yeah.
And she pulls the shades.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't leave that window open anymore. And the more I look at that picture and the more I look at the picture of the window, I just don't buy into the fact that's an owl. The strange thing about it is the eyes appear to be glowing. That's what the weird part about the. I have witnesses all the time, and they'll say the eyes were glowing, and I'll ask them, "Do you think it was eye shine that you're seeing? I mean, do you really think it was glowing?" And everyone that's seen it is very firm on the fact that yes, they were glowing. And when you look at this picture, it looks like glowing red eyes. Yeah, it looks like glowing red eyes, doesn't it?
And that's the first thing I asked her. I said, "Now, okay, what about the light in the room?" She said, "Dad, it was blinking at me." And right then I was almost speechless because, reflection and stuff, they don't blink. And she moved the light around, and it didn't make any difference. She said it was still the same. It's very, very creepy. I don't think I'd want to be down there at night.
No, I wouldn't either. Well, you'll have to keep me up to date and let me know what happens if anything else happens around that home. It's very odd.
Absolutely.
It's a very odd picture to say the least.
Yeah, we've recently had a lot of rain and stuff here the last couple of days, so I might go over there tomorrow and see if I can see any tracks or anything. Because if it came back once, it's probably going to come back again.
Definitely take a look around, see if you can find prints, but be careful as you do.
Oh, absolutely. I have a yellow streak a mile wide. I'm not going to take any chances.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Derrill, and talking about the photo very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me back. Thanks a lot, Wes.
Well, I want to welcome Brenda Harris to the show. Brenda, thanks for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, I always enjoy
Been a
talking to you.
while.
Yeah, no, it's been a long time. It's been too long. Thank you again for coming on. Before we get into some of these investigations that you've been doing and giving us an update of what's going on there in New Mexico, you're going to be at the New Mexico Bigfoot and Paranormal Conference that's coming up. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about that?
Sure. We'll be having a conference, like you said, it'll be August the 25th and the 26th, which will be next month. We'll have some speakers. If you mind me sharing the names of speakers, is a guy from, he's a good friend of ours too, Jim King, goes by Bear, the Bigfoot Outlaws. They'll be there speaking at the conference, along with myself and my teammates that will be there speaking as well too. We'll be sharing a lot of things that's, been going on around here, plus, what they have to bring to the table for the people to hear out here as well. And we'll, have that on a Friday and all day on Saturday.
Well, cool. Is there I don't know if there's a website for it. I remember seeing it last year, and I remember wanting to go last year. But it's the New Mexico Bigfoot and Paranormal Conference. Do they have a website or anything, Brenda? Do you know?
I just posted a flyer. So what I could do is I also posted on my team page, New Mexico Bigfoot, it's New Mexico Shadow Seekers. It's our team page, and I put a flyer up there. What I could do is I could shoot one out to you if you would like to post it on your page, or that would be awesome.
Please do. I'd be happy to do that for you. If you would, I know you're always investigating, even early on in the show, when I used to love to talk with you because you always, you go out there and you talk to people, you do one-on-one investigations. You're constantly, especially around the tribe. One thing I always appreciated about what you did was you went out to try and help people, and that was that was your whole agenda, basically, to help people. And I always respected that very much. But can you give us any updates from New Mexico? Tell us what's going on there. If there's any new encounters that you can share with us.
Sure. There's quite a few of them, as a matter of fact. The most, there's quite a few of them, like I said. I'll start with one that a family that lives in I believe in the trailer court. They've been hearing this thing come, yelling quite a bit. And I've been keeping up a lot with this gentleman and his family. They had contacted me back in October of last year. And as a matter of fact, me and my teammate, Don Lee, we were out on a different location, probably about, maybe 15 miles approximately, about, far from each other. While we were out there investigating this one area, I get a message about midnight. Gentleman said, hey, we're trying to get in contact with me, and they found me on Facebook. His wife contacts me and said, hey, we got something at our place, if you could come right now, it'd be great, So as we took off from there, and they told me that there's a young one, very young juvenile on their property, and they happened to be sitting outside. So we dropped what we were doing out at one location, flew back this way, and we found the gentleman, and they showed us where they were sitting. And they were sitting outside, just having a nice late evening, and all of a sudden the wife sees something standing by the tree, and she's like, "Oh my God, look at that! What is that?" Of course, the moonlight was out, so it's fairly bright, and they could see this very small individual. They're assuming it's a very young juvenile Sasquatch, standing between the trees there, and they were just watching it. And they said they was doing something, and they just, watched them like, oh my God, there it is, and like, what's, where's the big one at? They were kind of afraid because the they've always heard that the big ones usually buy pretty close, So they just kind of watched it. They flashed a light towards the flashlight, and they got, the eye shined, and then it took off running back down towards the river. Well, this area, like I said, it's been pretty active throughout the whole, for been quite some time now. Well, it's kind of gotten more, even more so since then. They've had, as a matter of fact, he called me a couple of days ago, earlier in this week. We should be back on Tuesday. He texted me late at night, about midnight, about 12:30 is when he texted me. When I checked the time, and he said that, hey, this thing is in the back, and his wife was back there in the back, and I'm not sure what she was doing outside in the back, but this thing is over the fence in the next field, and she's watching this thing. She said it was pretty big, and they flashed the light again. They got eye shine. I believe there was 2 of them, she said, and that was just within this past week. Now, in this same area, about 2.5 months ago, about 2.5 months ago now, in this area, there's other families that live in this area, that live in mobile homes, also that live in houses. Well, one night, about 11 o'clock, they heard this thing yell. They said this scream was very loud. People around there, they said that as soon as they heard that thing yell, they're like, oh my God, what was that? They've never heard a scream like that yelled, and as soon as that went off, all the people, all the neighbors, one by one, everybody was turning on their back lights behind their house, flashing their flashlights, wondering like, what the heck was that? And so, they kept watching, and it started moving back to the west. And it happened again about probably 3 days later, it did it again. Now, this time it was pretty close to the same area, but a little bit closer to an individual in his mobile home. They heard this yell, and they're like, we're not staying here anymore. We're leaving. As a matter of fact, 2 families were moving out of there. They said that whatever that thing is, that is big, and it's very loud. That really scared a lot of the families in that area. So as far as I know, I believe 2 families definitely were moving out of that particular area.
How are people describing this creature, the ones that have actually seen it beyond eyeshine? Are they describing more of an ape, or are they describing it more of a person? What are some of the descriptions you're getting from this specific area?
I get both. Some say that they look like almost like a monkey, but the face, they say that it has more kind of a human look to it, but it's covered all in hair. The eye color, they say, is red. This thing moves very fast. They evolve. So this gentleman that actually seen the young one and the big one actually saw it right across the road from his mobile home. In the field, it dropped on all 4 legs, and it did a little yell, and it took off, darted right back down towards the river. He said the height of this thing, the biggest one that they've seen in that particular area is 6.5 feet to 7.5 feet, I believe. It's not very muscular, kind of scraggy looking, but they also have seen some that are very, very muscular. Those are the descriptions that I've been getting quite a bit of.
Have you gotten any aggressive reports out of this area, or is it mainly just the screaming and the things lurking around?
The aggressiveness is this one has. This is in another area where a lady got up one morning to feed her dogs. She had a female German Shepherd plus 4 puppies. Well, she went to go feed them in the morning. When she went out to the back, all of them were dead, and all of their necks were broken. And they happen to live right along the area. I've been getting quite a few reports on that. Not only that, but also another area where a gentleman is having the problems with one that, turning the doorknobs like it wants to get in. It's pretty obvious it could get in. I don't know if it's just probably just trying to scare the family, or what is his intentions of doing so. They're trying to figure it out. So, I talked with the gentleman, and he related a message back to them. If you guys do some of this and this, and try setting up some cameras. It's really weird and kind of odd how they know what the cameras are, and they usually stop. They'll either go elsewhere or they'll go around the camera. Since they've put up the cameras, that seems to help quite a bit. And I also have said in the past, and then I still tell the people today, try to get as much light as you can up around your property, because they don't like the light. But also I always tell them, be aware, because they are becoming more daring out in the light. They don't come out just during the night time. There's been some daytime reportings as well.
Yeah, and you generally give people that same advice, and that same advice I give to people I actually got from you, Brenda, about lighting the place up, putting up cameras. A lot of the advice people hear me say, it's stuff I've regurgitated from you on what to do. But don't you think it's odd that they avoid the cameras? I mean, there's no other predator. I got to be careful I say this, because I want to make sure I'm right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and say it. There's hardly any other predator on the planet that avoids cameras the way Sasquatch avoids cameras. And it's weird, don't you think?
It is. It really is. How do they know it's a camera in the first place? Why doesn't? Those are all the questions that every researcher, I believe, has in their mind. How do they know it's there? And you can hide it and conceal it as good as you can. Most of the times you're lucky to get, a picture of a partial of a leg or an arm, even a head or body-wise, How do they know? That's a really good question. I asked myself that question as well. Some believe that they can hear the batteries, the camera that makes noise. Of course, we don't hear it. And they have some very good ears. They can hear. They can hear, long ways. They can smell you from a very long distance.
Yeah,
I would say it would have to be the sound of the camera that it's making.
Yeah, I used to think that. There was a weird one with M.K. Davis. I remember he put up this video of these people that claimed to have Sasquatches all over their property, and they could never get them on camera. They would even stand inside the home with a camera and try and capture them, but these things would never come around. And what the homeowner ended up doing, gosh, I wish I could find the video. I'll have to, maybe I'll have to send it to MK, see if he can send it to me. There was one where this woman had set up a camera pointed to a mirror that was facing the front door, and she actually got 2 or 3 of these things wrestling around in the yard. I mean, they look like, if I didn't know better, I'd say, well, it's a bunch of apes in this woman's yard, and they're wrestling around in the yard. But she had to actually take the camera, point it to the mirror, and then it was capturing a reflection off the mirror of what was going on in the front yard. And basically the homeowner was saying every time they go out with a camera or they turn on a camera, these things scatter like there's no tomorrow. And it was just weird that they went to that degree to try and capture them on film. It always stuck with me. I always wondered, why did they... But what other updates do you have there around New Mexico?
There's also, let me see here. Earlier in the, I would say spring, my husband's nephew stopped by our place, and he says, hey, he was with his girlfriend, and they told me right away, hey, can you come over to our place? We really need to show you something. And I'm like, yeah, sure. She goes, it's a handprint. And she goes, it's on my sister's ride. I'm like, okay. So, I dropped everything later on that day, took off over there, and it was a big handprint. She said it wasn't the first time that it had happened. I guess October of last year, it left a handprint on her ride again, or that was the first time. And then this spring, late spring here, it left it. It's a pretty big handprint. What I'll do is I'll shoot you out the picture, and if you want to show that, that's fine.
Yeah, please do.
She was telling me that there was an evening where they were home and they were just watching TV, and the TV was like right underneath the window. So they had like a lace as a curtain, and they were just sitting there watching TV. They noticed something really looking in the window. They're like, my gosh, what is that? And so they got up to look, and she looked, and there it was standing at that window watching them. I believe the next night or a couple nights later, she said that her little girl was must have heard something outside, and she thought she could hear the dogs really barking. So she looked out the window. The little girl looked out the window, and she goes, Mom, look, there's a monkey. It's sitting right there by the tree. She, oh, no, it's not. It's that tree stump. No, Mom, look, you come here, look, She goes, it's a little, it's just sitting there. It's doing something by the tree. Again, the mom's like, no, there's no monkey there, So she finally looks out the window, and she couldn't believe that. I mean, it was just right there. I mean, opened the door, and there's the tree, and it's sitting right there, and it's, playing with something or doing something. And they said that she just watched it for a few minutes, and then they must have he either tapped the window or something, and it got up and it took off. Now, this area, there's one of their neighbors that lives maybe half a mile from them. This gentleman, he does not, want Bigfoot around his property. So when the family knows that it's around their place, it's when that gentleman's he'll fire off his AK. Yes, he doesn't want this thing on his property. He's shot his gun off quite a few times, and that's what they were telling me. So when they hear that gunshot, we know that it's around. Because our dogs, they really just go nuts when it's around. You can hear the dogs, they start crying. They get scared. So that's what's been going on in that area. In another area, this lady has been having problems with one that's been, constantly bothering her horse. And it'll leave scratch marks on its back behind there, on his back leg, and also on its neck. You'll have scratch marks, some pretty deep wounds on his neck area and the back leg. Well, just earlier in the summer, last month, the beginning of June, I get a call, and she says, hey, this thing came back, and it really needs you to come take a look at this, what it did to the corral. Her husband and her, they were just happened to put up a new siding on the corral, new boards and stuff, and this thing just came in, it just ripped it down. I mean, it just bent the pole, and the metal sheeting. Of course, the metal sheeting is pretty easy to bend, but the way it ripped, toward the metal sheeting on the side there, it's like, wow. I mean, it just pushed everything over. And they said they heard the horses, really acting up late that night. Apparently, this thing got into the corral. It must have been trying to get one of the horses. Well, one of them darted out into the field, and the horse took off. But it just really just messed up their corral there. We get a lot of reports of it going to people's homes and turning the doorknobs on people's homes, tapping on the window. Getting a lot of reports of that.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. When you and I have talked, when I had you on the show a couple of years back, we talked about that, about them coming up to the windows and messing with the door handles. But you rarely ever get any, and I get a lot of those reports today, but you rarely ever get any reports of them entering the home, which I think is odd. Have you had any reports where they actually did come in to the house?
Yes, I do. There's a lady that was telling me that years ago one had actually come into the house that really scared her. And of course, this thing, I don't know if they knew if she was home or, both of the husband and wife were home. This thing just opened the door and just came right in, and they're both standing there like, what the heck? And, of course, it scared them, and it darted right back out. That really scared them.
Yeah, I can imagine. Did she describe what she saw, what actually came in to you?
She said that it the face-wise, again, it looked like almost human-like, covered all in hair. And it wasn't very muscular. Again, it's pretty tall. She said probably you're looking about between 6.5 and 7 feet tall. The color of it was a black, not very muscular. She said this one looked like it was really scraggy looking. It looked like it was kind of like sick, I guess, because it was kind of small, body-wise. Maybe it was just hungry, or I don't know. And she goes, "But wow, that thing is, it's tall, and to them it's big." And they said this thing moves, really, it just started right back out real fast. I get also reports of it walking or running along the side of people's home and slapping the side of the homes. People ask, well, why is it doing that? I mean, I get quite a few reports of that. And I think what they're doing is when they slap the homes to see if either someone's home or to see where you're at in the house, or, if it's an abandoned house. It's something that I share with the people. If you have an old abandoned shed or a building that you're not using, it's just, just there, get rid of it, because they're going to use that for shelter. If you don't want these things around, you don't want them living out in your shed there, you need to get that shed taken care of and get it out of there, because they will make that as their little home there. That's why they're doing that, is slapping the side of the house to see if anybody's home, what kind of response are they going to get back, from us people. Are they going to come out? Could be another way of them trying to get you out, lure you outside to where they're at. When I tell the people, don't go outside. If you do, take somebody else out there with you, because you never know. You don't really know. We all don't really know what their intentions are. We're still trying to figure them out. What do they want? People always ask, what do they want? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? It could be a number of things. Right now, all we're doing is doing a lot of assuming and just watching and listening out, see what they're doing. It's just kind of a study, like studying them. You want to, you have a horse. Okay, you have a horse, and the horse doesn't know you, but you need to get to know this horse, see how it works, see what they're doing, see what they like. It's almost like the same way of doing, watching this Bigfoot. Okay, what do you want? Go away. A lot of people don't want these things around their horse, around their house. I'm sorry. That's why they shoot at them. They don't want them around, causing problems for them. Now, this is something else I'll bring up is people feed these things. Some people do. People always ask me, should I feed it? I tell them it's best not to. And a lot of people disagree with me on this, and that's fine. That's okay. And the reason why that I say don't feed them is because you got neighbors that live around you, and you're feeding this thing, and you go on vacation. Nobody's not going to feed that thing. That thing's going to get mad, and it has happened out here. I know a lady that was doing this, and she was feeding, and I kept telling her, don't feed them, please. Just leave them feed. They can go get food elsewhere. Well, she went on vacation for about a week, for about 2 weeks, I believe, and she came back. Nobody didn't feed it, no food. She got back and went back there to the back, and they destroyed their backyard. They threw things around, and they got upset. Not only that, then they go on to the neighbor's place. They're looking for food on their property, and then they don't want this thing around. The people that feed these things, you need to really think about your neighbors that live around you. And you're feeding it, and something happens, and like, oh my God, this thing got mad. Why? Why is it upset? Why, did somebody do something to it? Is that why it's getting aggressive? Think about your other neighbors. They don't want them here. They don't know, of course, they don't know that you're feeding these things. And they're trying to figure out what the heck is going on, that's the thing. Yeah, I just, it's up to you, but I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, that's the advice I give to people is don't feed them. I mean, and the analogy that I always use is, if there was a grizzly bear in your backyard, would you feed it? And the answer every time is no. There's no way in hell I'd feed a grizzly bear. Well, a Sasquatch can do as much harm as a grizzly bear. And, you really have to, and I'm with you on that. I usually tell people not to feed it. Just more or less common sense, not because I have one in my garage I'm studying, and I know for a fact that feeding them is a bad idea. For me, common sense says don't feed these things. Has there been any Dogman reports around there?
Yes. There's been quite a few. There's been quite a few of those, too. Up there towards the Nap area where they, the big old agricultural place where they grow hay and different variety of vegetables up there. There's one area that people always see it run across the road, and they say it's very big. Of course, I haven't seen it yet, but they say that it hangs around in this one area. And why it hangs around that area, people try to figure that out. I don't know, Of course, I haven't seen one, but people have informed me of it out there, like in Shiprock area. Also, way out towards in the mountains area, they have seen it out there too. It moves pretty quick, pretty big. They say very big. There was one lady, let me share this one with you. Several years ago, I had gotten a report that something had been killing, took her sheep. So a teammate and my daughter and I, we took off out there, and I talked with the lady and with the family, the mom and daughter, and they had shared with me what had happened about a week before I got there. And she said that one morning, Saturday morning, they got up really early to let out their sheep and their sheepdogs. Well, because they live up on top and they have a canyon down below, and they do this every day. By 7 o'clock in the morning, they open up the corral so all the sheep can their sheepdogs lead them back, down into that corral, down into the canyon there, and they hang out there all day while the dogs do, watch over them down there. So they'll be down there from 7 to, and then she said they start coming. The dogs start bringing the sheep back in about 4 o'clock. Well, that morning they let them out. The dogs, let them down into the canyon there, and by 9 o'clock they had the front door was open, I believe, and she noticed the daughter just happened to look, or it was the mom that happened to look, and they seen the sheep back up on, up by the house, and she's like, what in the world? So they went outside and they started looking, they're like, what, why are they back? What's going on? So they got all the sheep that was back on top, and they counted every one of them. They had a total of 30 sheep and rams altogether, plus their, I think it was 4 sheepdogs. There was a sheep and a ram that was missing, and one of their sheepdogs was missing. So they went driving back down into the canyon. They went down into the canyon to go see if they can go find them. And when they came, drove down in there, came across this one area, they found the ram. The head was missing. The wool, the skin of the ram was ripped off its body, and the body was gone. The skin was laying off to the side. So they were like, oh man, what attacked, my sheep and the ram. So they went driving down more to see if they could find the sheep and the sheepdog. Well, they never did find it. It was gone. So they sat there. They went back to where they found the skin and the head, and it was laying, off to the side. And they're like, they just couldn't figure out, like, kind of been a pack of dogs that did that. And she's just like, there's no way, and the grandma said, no, it's got to be something. So they were just sitting in the truck, and then right where they were parked, off to the right-hand side of them, is like down into like this little, what do you call that? I want to say a ditch, but where the water runs through. I can't think of, I just lost track of mine. Anyway, right across there's a big mound of dirt, and the mom just happened to was looking at her daughter, and she was talking to her, looking at her, like trying to figure out what the heck happened and what killed the ram, and took off with their dog and the sheep. And so they were talking there, and the mom just happens to, something catches her eye right across from where they were parked. Like I said, there's this big old mound of dirt. She sees something moving right there. And she just watched it, and she tells her daughter, look at that, there's something right there. They're like kind of leaning or sitting on that mound of dirt right there. And they just watched this thing, that, what in the world, what is that? And so she said that a few seconds later, this thing got up. It stood up, and it turned. They're like, oh, my God, what is that? And what this thing looked like, she described to me, was it was really tall. This thing was very, very muscular. The color of it was silver grayish. It had a long, fluffy tail. It was walking around, and it stopped, and it looked right at them, at the mom and daughter. And that really scared them, because that thing knew that they were there watching them. This thing was walks around the mound, and they seen something else moving behind that one. Well, this one gets up too, but it's a smaller one. This one is the same color. It got up, and what really scared them was that they said it was walking on two legs. The smaller one got up, was walking right behind it, following the big one. Same color. This one's just a little bit smaller, very muscular too. They said that it walked around the mound of that hill, and it disappeared. It was gone. They said they hightailed out of there after seeing that, and what they believe they seen was a Dogman.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, it stuck around where the kill was at.
Yeah, when we went down into that canyon, we looked around and we found the head of the ram. I'll shoot those pictures out to you if you want to show those. I don't mind.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I'll shoot that out to you as well.
Yeah, one thing, have you noticed, Brenda, with a lot of Native Americans, they're very, well, this is going to be a blanket statement, but they're very superstitious. A lot of times they are. Not always, sometimes. Mm-hmm. Whenever you start talking about the Dogman, I've noticed a lot of Native Americans clench up and don't want to talk about it. They'll talk about Sasquatch all day long. They'll talk about what's going on around the reservation. And the moment I bring up Dogman, I've heard some say it's a skinwalker. I've heard others say it's a spirit. Yeah. A lot of times, but they're very superstitious when it comes to the Dogman. Why? Yeah. Why is that?
I haven't really, really dug deep into that. So I really can't answer your question.
No, that's okay.
On that one, I just know that a lot of the natives, they don't like to talk about it because it's almost like they say it's, like you said, skinwalkers. The skinwalker, I just don't even deal with that at all because I know what those are. It's nothing but witchcraft. It's used like to harm, family members or friends, and and it's all due to like being, jealous and stuff like that because one family could be doing better than another family, and so they go send send this individual to a medicine man, have medicine man go, harm these, the family, and it's sad that that's how it's been used quite a bit. Used, I guess, way back a long time ago, they used to be used for good, but now it's like turned and, being used for evil. I just don't really get into that because, like I said, it's a lot of witchcraft that goes along with that. Dogman and Skinwalker, they kind of see that it's the same thing. the people, they do, like you said, they shy away from they just don't want to talk about it. And why that is a lot of it has to do with superstitious, like you said. Even like a lot of people, they don't like black cats, and it terrifies them. And I've actually seen an individual that happens to live really close to us, and this gentleman does not like black cats. We used to have a black cat, and all of a sudden he disappeared. And this man just does not like. I mean, he's terrified of him. And I'm assuming that would be the same way with the Dogman. It's a little bit more to it, but people are not really saying what, and they're being kind of quiet about that. And like you said, it's true that the natives will talk about the Sasquatch like any time of the day. But when it comes to Skinwalker and to a Dogman, those are kind of touchy subjects for the Native Americans. A lot of them, not a whole lot of them. They'll speak up and talk about it, but not a lot of them will. And the ones that do talk about it, and the ones that don't want to talk about it, they get upset about it. Boy, they'll have some words.
Yeah, no, I noticed there's a younger generation that'll talk about the Dogman. Even the younger generation doesn't like to talk about skinwalkers, and I don't blame them. I mean, if you're thinking it's witchcraft, I don't blame you one bit for not talking about it. That's that old saying, you start talking about it, and then that starts paying attention to what you're talking about. It's kind of like you start looking into the, the abyss, and the abyss starts looking back at you. And I think that's why a lot of Native Americans don't. If you think it's correlated with skinwalkers, of course you're not going to talk about Dogman, especially if it's, in your mind, it's witchcraft, But it's hard to figure out what this Dogman is because it does seem very physical. Most of the encounters I've heard, it's very physical. It's a physical creature.
Yeah.
I had a guy recently out of your area, and he was driving down an old country road, an old back road, and he said that this dog came running across the front of his truck. And I said, well, what's strange about that? He goes, Wes, it was on two legs and it was standing up like a man. And it was as big as a man, if not bigger. He said that the head of it was a dog, and it turned and looked at him. And he said he was terrified because it wasn't like looking at a dog. There was something weird about it, I guess, beyond it being on two legs and running across the road like a man. But so you do get a lot of those reports. I mean, I get a lot of those reports of people seeing this Dogman,
Yeah, I get reports on that quite a bit. Not as much as Bigfoot, but I get a report of, I get more Bigfoot than I do Dogman. But we do have Dogman running around out here too as well. The mom and the daughter that, saw this thing, I said, what did the head look like? She says, it looks just like a dog, and she goes, this thing was big, really, really muscular, long, fluffy tail, and she said, and it was walking on two legs. And when when she had seen that little one too, she's like, oh my God, what in the world? And that really scared them. It really did. Those are reports that I get from different areas out here as well.
A lot of the Dogman reports tend to be more aggressive reports that I get. I had this guy on one time, and he took a shot at one. He didn't know it was a Dogman. He thought it was a coyote. It's kind of the same way the lady's describing it to you. Very silver, grayish color, and so he thought it was a coyote. He took a shot at it. It stopped, turned around, stood up, and looked right at him. And then he realized that wasn't a coyote. But the part of the story that was fascinating was he took off running back to his grandfather's home, which was a couple miles away. And when he gets back to the home, this thing followed him back to the home and would stand outside of his window growling at him. And that, that always kind of stuck with me. It's like, that isn't, I don't know that a lot of dogs have vengeance in their heart. I mean, if you said Sasquatch did, I could understand that. As primates, we're primates too. We tend, vengeance is very much, or revenge, not vengeance, but revenge is a very human-like trait. And you see it a lot of times with non-human primates. But canines, I don't know that that's the case. What do you think that this Dogman is that people are seeing?
Oh man, I don't know. When people say it's dog, because I'm assuming dog. I'm picturing what the lady what the mom and daughter seen. Where the man comes in, is it because they walk on two legs? That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, why are they putting the man, that dog man, man in there? It doesn't have no features of a man face like a Bigfoot. Has a human facial, looks kind of human. But this Dogman looks more like dog, a huge dog. I'm not sure where they get the man from, unless it's the body wise, built wise, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think it's just one of those slang terms, like Bigfoot. Well, it has a big foot. That's why we call it Bigfoot. But I think it's one of those slang terms. You're right, though. I've never had actually an encounter where someone said, well, it looked kind of human-like. It's always reported as a dog. Looks very much dog-like. But if you think about it, Brenda, when it gets up on two legs, that really doesn't make sense to me. I'm not a scientist, but that doesn't really make sense to me that a canine would get up on two legs. That'd be like a human walking on all fours 90% of the time. It doesn't really make sense. Why not just stand up and walk on two legs? But for a dog, it makes more sense they'd be on four legs. They could move faster. They could do a lot more. Yeah. They're built to be on four legs, and it's strange. It's strange. I never really bought into the Dogman, but after having talked to so many witnesses, I'm convinced it's out there. What it is, I couldn't tell you. It's a canine, I guess, of some sort.
I seen a track that was fairly visible where you could really make it out. It's a big track, a big canine track. I mean, it's bigger than my foot, and I got baby feet. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, I'm like, and the some of the guys that are like people that are having encounters with Bigfoot, they're trying to say that it's probably the Dogman that you're mixing them up with. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Like, come on, guys, clean your eyeglasses or something in your eyes. It's clearly you can see that it's Bigfoot is not a Dogman. Look at the how it walks, how it leaves its footprint versus the Dogman. It's different. Maybe a little similar to each other, but they're very different. And so, people are kind of like, maybe it was that Dogman, maybe it wasn't Bigfoot. But I see more of the Bigfoot prints myself than I do the Dogman. I've seen some of the prints of the Dogman, and they're big too. They're just as big, but shaped very differently, more canine shape.
Yeah, and if I hadn't seen it for myself, I don't know how I'd feel about it. But you're right. I did see one tracks one time of a Dogman, and they were odd. They were weird tracks. Nothing like I'd ever seen before. I don't know what you saw, Brenda, but the one I saw in Texas, the heel went to like a V. If you were to take your hands and put the bottom of your hands together and make a V with your hand, that's exactly how the heel of this thing went down. And I can't remember what the size of the track was. It was big, though. It was way bigger than a dog. You're right. It was kind of like a Sasquatch track. It just looked different. It just was odd. Yeah.
I haven't seen one. I'd like to see one, but, I haven't seen that one. I see more Bigfoot than I do Dogman, but I do get the reports out here on them.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to keep us up to date, Brenda. It's been too long since I've had you on the show. And I know for the audience out there, if they go to YouTube, check out Brenda's channel, New Mexico Shadow Seekers with Brenda Harris. She definitely puts up some good videos, and I give researchers a hard time all the time, Brenda, because most of them they drive me nuts. But I absolutely love the work that you do. I've always enjoyed talking to you. Back when we first started the show and no one would come on, you would always come on. So I always appreciated that about you, that you would always come on the show. I've learned a lot from talking to you too as well.
Oh, thank you. It's, like I've said in the past, when I first started talking with you guys and did a radio show, me doing all of this Bigfoot research and stuff, And people would ask me, how can you go out there and do this? And, you just have to make yourself famous and be rich from it. You can't make money off doing this. And that's not the reason why I'm doing this. My passion is I just want everybody out there, just be careful. Be very aware of your surroundings out there. And I'll say it and I'll keep saying it. Be careful. We don't know a whole lot. We're still learning. Right now, we're just like all assuming that this is what it's doing. This is their family. That's what they want you to think, but that could change in a split second. So be careful. I just don't want anybody to get hurt out there. Be aware that it might be in your area. I'm not saying that it is. It could be. There's so much that, we just need to look out for. Safety, that is my number one thing, about this whole thing is be careful. Always try to have someone with you when you go out there looking around and stuff. You never know, that is my whole deal. It's not me trying to make money or become famous from this. That's not what I'm about. No, I just want people out there to be careful, plain and simple. We may not, and I don't have all the answers. And all these top researchers, they don't have all the answers. We're all assuming. And, I know a lot of them is like, oh, no, she don't know what she's talking about, blah, blah, blah. No, it's true. If you sit down and really think about it, you're just assuming.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
right.
this, and that,
Yeah.
So, we all have to be really careful out there. That's my main message, is just be careful out there.
Well, I've always appreciated that about you, and being well known in the Bigfoot world isn't what it's cracked up to be, or being famous in the Bigfoot world isn't what it's cracked up to be. It's sometimes obscure. Being obscure is sometimes better, but either way, I've always appreciated that, Brenda, because you do go out and you help a lot of people, and in situations like this, you can only call the tribal police so many times before they get annoyed with you and really don't want to deal. I don't think they want to deal with it anyway. But so who else?
Oh yeah, you're right. It's true.
Who else do you call?
I did get. You're so right. That's so true. People. I call cops to come out here. I'll be out there. I don't care what time, late at night it is, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'll be there. There are times when John Lee and I wouldn't get home until about 5 o'clock in the morning. There was one night we stayed out and we didn't get home till 6. And that's how late I am. I'm out most of the time, driving around, checking out and listening, get some recordings and stuff. And while I'm in that area, I'll check around on around the neighbors. And a lot of people out there don't know that I do this. We do this. Our team, we do this on our own time. I don't ask for a donation. I don't. I do this because I care. And like I said, I just don't want anybody to get hurt out there. And I enjoyed doing this. I really do. And it goes back to when I first got the call from the 2 grandmas that were crying at the chapter house, help me. I'm like, what? Someone needs to do something. Someone needs to speak and say something. And I took a big step. I'm waiting for people to laugh at me, make fun of me, and that's all right. Go before the people, hey, we need to talk about this. There's something going on out here. If I can just reach out to the people and do this and do that, I got so many thank yous, more thank yous than I did getting made laugh or, made fun of. And that's okay. That's why I got into this. After I had, spoke with the 2 old grandmas out here. They were in tears. Help me. Can you kill it? What can you do? It's taking my sheep. What do I do? I sit and talk with them, and I'll go back to their homes, and they show me some things, and I'm like, oh my word, someone needs to do something. What can we do? If we get the word out, someone needs to speak up. And just little old me here speaking before the people, and they were so thankful that I brought it up. Nobody else wouldn't do it, but I did it because I cared. That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And it's even now the radio shows that I do, not too long ago, last fall, as a matter of fact. I did another show, and after doing this show, I can't believe I got a message from a lady out there from France. I mean, out of the States. And I'm getting calls from Canada. Thank you so much for the information. I never thought of doing this and doing that. Wow, you know, that's what it's about, reaching out to the people. If you can do these little things, maybe it'll help. Maybe it'll stir it away and it'll go somewhere else. That is my goal, you know, and to reaching people out there that far. Apparently, I'm doing something right, you know, and it's really amazing. It really is, you know, how a radio show can reach out to so many people out there in you know, in a very good way. Someone that's having a hard time with these things, you know, what do I do? Who do I call? You know, and it is true. They're kind of like going to stump, like, oh my, you know, cops are not going to come. They won't believe me. They think I'm crazy. You know, and for people that listen to these shows, it's helped them so much by doing these little things, you know, and that's when I get a lot of messages. Thank you so much. And that, you know, just the thank you, that means so much to me. That means more words. Those thank you, 2 words right there, means more to me than money or being famous. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on, Brenda.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on. And I'll shoot those pictures right out to you.
And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Please check out sasquatchchronicles.com if you get a free moment. And I will see you guys next time. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Some